You ever hit a point where you're not even mad anymore? You're just tired? That was me, sitting in my bedroom, staring at my cracked laptop screen while my niece screamed in the hallway and my mom pretended not to hear it. I'd just gotten home from work, dropped my keys, and before I could even take my shoes off, my mom came in with this fake sweet tone and said, "Since your brother and his family are staying here, expenses are going up. We're gonna need you to start paying a bit more for rent." I just sat there. Not shocked. Not hurt. Just numb. Because this wasn't sudden. It was just the latest twist in a story I didn't ask to be in. Let me take you back. My name's Micah. I'm 22. Full-time college student. I work part-time as a junior software dev while saving up for my dream, to build a startup and never have to ask anyone for a damn thing again. To keep costs down, I've been living at home with my parents. Not freeloading. I pay $550 a month for rent and groceries. I figured, hey, I'd be paying that to live with roommates anyway, might as well help my family instead. For a while it worked. Kind of. I stayed in my lane. Went to school. Went to work. Paid my share. Tried not to rock the boat. Then Chase came back. Chase, my older brother. 23, married. 2 kids. Official golden child. The one who could do no wrong, even when he was doing everything wrong. Growing up, Chase was chaos wrapped in charm. Got into fights, skipped class, wrecked my parents' car, and somehow always walked away with a shrug and a pat on the back. Me? I color-coded my homework, and still got yelled at for not taking out the trash fast enough. A year ago, he moved out with his wife and kids. Took loans from both sets of parents to start a construction business. Bought a house. Talked big. Then a month ago, he came back. Business failed. House gone. Just until things settle, he said, showing up with a duffel bag, a stroller, and big promises about a huge payout coming soon. My parents bought it. Said stuff like, "He's under pressure," and "He just needs a little support." Now I'm still paying rent, but he isn't. Not a dollar. Not a cent. And on top of that, they raised my rent. The house turned into chaos. His toddlers took over the living room with toys and sticky juice spills. I moved my work setup into my bedroom, but that didn't stop them from barging in to grab stuff off my desk. His wife? Never cleans. Dishes piled up. Laundry everywhere. She even made a joke about how nice it must be that I get to focus on school while they deal with the stress of parenthood. Right. Because raising your kids in someone else's house rent-free is so hard. I brought it up. My mom hit me with a lecture about family supporting family. My dad said, "We're all in this together." When I asked, "Then why am I the only one paying?" They got quiet. Because they knew. And they didn't care. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about money. This was about value. No matter how hard I worked or how quiet I kept, I'd never be him. I was just the reliable one. The fallback plan. The one they could push a little further without guilt. I looked at my mom, standing there like she hadn't just stabbed me in the back with a smile. "We're gonna need you to pitch in a bit more." I smiled, too. Not because I agreed. Because I was done. Growing up, I learned early that being easy was the only way to survive in our house. Not easy, like weak, just low maintenance. I didn't throw fits. I didn't get caught sneaking out. I didn't wreck cars or crash parties. I kept my head down, stayed out of trouble, and followed the script: do your chores. Get good grades. Don't complain. Chase didn't follow the script, and somehow still got the standing ovation. When he got caught shoplifting at 16, my mom cried and called it a phase. When he dropped out of community college after 2 semesters, my dad blamed the professors. When his wife found out he'd been gambling their rent money, they all moved back in with us like nothing ever happened. And somehow, I was still the one being told to contribute more. I tried to let it go. I did. Told myself it was temporary. That things would settle. But nothing changed. The house was always loud. The kids were always sticky. My room wasn't mine anymore. It was the only quiet place in the entire house, which made it public property. Every time I tried to study, someone would knock. Every time I set a boundary, I got an eye roll. Every time I asked for peace, I got guilt-tripped. Your brother's going through a lot. You don't know what it's like to raise kids. You're lucky we even let you stay here this long. That last one? That's when something in me snapped. Because let's be honest, I wasn't staying there. I was funding their little support system. My rent was keeping the lights on. My job was paying for groceries they all ate. And yet somehow, I was the guest. I remember the night I decided to leave. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No storming out. It was quiet. I was in my room, working on a side project, building a budgeting app for people living paycheck to paycheck. I've been getting freelance offers lately. Small stuff, but consistent. Enough that I realized something. I didn't need to stay. I wasn't trapped. I was just too used to being invisible to see the door wide open in front of me. So I started planning. I stopped giving them everything. Stopped volunteering for errands. Stopped folding into their mess. I found a one-bedroom sublet 25 minutes from campus. It wasn't fancy, but it had a lock, a working fridge, and no toddlers throwing toys at my face during Zoom calls. I didn't tell anyone. I packed at night. One box at a time. Clothes. Tech documents. I transferred utilities, rerouted my mail, and lined up the lease. On a Thursday afternoon, I took my final box to my car. My mom caught me at the door. Where are you going with all that? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain. Out, I said. Her eyebrows knit. Confused. Annoyed. You didn't say anything. Didn't think I needed to. You said I was lucky to stay. I figured it was time to stop pushing my luck. She didn't respond. Not with an apology. Not with regret. Just stood there stunned. Like she couldn't compute that the quiet one finally walked away. I got in my car. Drove off. Didn't even look in the rearview. And when I pulled into that tiny driveway and opened the door to my new place, I dropped the box, stood there for a second, and smiled. No noise. No tension. No guilt. Just a space that was mine. A life where I didn't owe anyone anything just to be tolerated. And I knew I'd made the right call. Because the moment you stop begging to be appreciated and start building without asking, that's the moment they start realizing what they lost. I didn't expect them to care when I left. Honestly, I figured they'd throw my name into a few passive-aggressive dinner conversations, chalk it up to me being too sensitive, and move on like they always had. And for a while, that's exactly what happened. No calls. No texts. Not even a, "Did you make it there safe?" from my mom. But that silence? It was golden. I didn't have to explain where I was going or justify staying in my room. I didn't have to listen to anyone's excuses or be the emotional buffer for another one of Chase's meltdowns. My apartment was small, but it was mine. Clean floors. A bed I didn't have to remake for anyone else. A fridge that stayed closed. It wasn't much, but it felt like the first breath of real air after being underwater for years. I focused on school. Doubled down on freelance work. And the wildest thing happened. My life became quiet. And in that quiet, I started to grow. I picked up more clients through word of mouth. Built websites, managed back-end systems, and even got offered a part-time remote dev position at a mid-size firm. Not glamorous, but the pay was stable, and the team treated me like I knew what I was doing. I went from scrambling to cover rent to setting up automatic savings transfers. And all without ever hearing a word from home. One night, about 2 months after I left, I got a text from my mom. Just one line. "Hey, your brother's going through a lot. Think you could help us out a bit financially for a few months?" I laughed when I read it. "No. How are you?" "No. We miss you." Just another transaction request, like I was some living ATM they forgot to charge a service fee for. I didn't reply. A few days later, I got another one. This time from my dad. "We're struggling a little with bills. If you have anything to spare, it would help." Not, "We made a mistake." Not, "We're proud of you for landing on your feet." Just a plea for cash, from the same people who told me I was lucky to stay. They thought I'd crash. That leaving the nest would break me. They didn't realize that the nest wasn't a home. It was a trap. And now that I'd escaped, Now that they realized I had actual value, they were trying to claw their way back in. I didn't respond to that message either. Because here's what they never understood. You don't get to neglect someone for years and then ask for a handout the moment they make it. They taught me how to survive on my own. Not on purpose, but through every ounce of neglect, every extra chore, every moment, they gave my brother a pass and handed me a bill. They made me resilient. And that resilience? It had started paying off. One of my freelance projects went viral, a budgeting tool I made for students. A financial influencer picked it up, demoed it on their YouTube channel, and suddenly, my inbox was full. I turned that momentum into a brand. Registered the domain. Built a community site. Started a newsletter. Within 3 months, I had over 10,000 subscribers and enough ad revenue to quit my part-time job. All this, while my parents and brother were still in the same house, still fighting, still drowning in the mess they created, and now missing the one person who always picked up their slack. And when the messages stopped being about help and started being about we should talk, I knew exactly what was happening. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because they realized I didn't need them, and that terrified them. The thing about being the reliable one, the quiet, helpful, always has it together sibling, is that everyone assumes your kindness comes with no limits. That you'll always pick up the phone. Always say yes. Always show up. You owe them your strength because they got used to living without any of their own. So when the messages started piling in, polite at first, then guilt-trippy, I wasn't surprised. We're not asking for much. You've always been good with money. Your brother's trying, but it's hard out there right now. I didn't reply to any of them. Not because I was being petty. Not because I wanted to punish them. I just remembered. I remembered standing in the hallway with a bowl of pasta, listening to Chase yell at his wife because she bought the wrong snacks, while my mom told me to be understanding. I remembered my dad telling me to grow up when I asked why I was paying rent while Chase got a free ride. I remembered late nights in my room, trying to finish coding assignments with toddlers screaming outside my door, and being told I was too uptight when I asked for quiet. And most of all, I remembered the way no one blinked when I left. The way they let me walk out without so much as a pause. So no, I didn't owe them anything. Still, a part of me wanted to be the bigger person. Maybe send $200. Something. Just to ease the weight of my conscience. But every time I hovered over the send button, something stopped me. A memory. A moment. A voice in my head asks, what would they have done if the roles were reversed? And I already knew the answer. They would have told me to figure it out. So I did. And now that I had, they wanted access to the success they never believed in. A week later, I got a voicemail from my mom. We're just really struggling, sweetheart. I know things have been tense, but maybe we can talk? Not a single mention of what they'd done. No accountability. Just that soft, manipulative tone I'd heard 1,000 times before, the one that made every problem my responsibility to fix. I let it sit in my inbox. Because this time, I didn't owe them a solution. I was allowed to heal without being their safety net. A few days later, Chase messaged me directly. The message was short, careless, and straight to the point. Yo. If you're doing so great now, how about helping the fam out? No punctuation. No greeting. No shame. I stared at it, blinking. Then I typed back 2 words. Ask Mom. Then I blocked his number. That night, I cooked dinner in my kitchen. Stir fry. Music playing. No screaming in the background. No chaos. No resentment pressing down on my chest. Just me, my space, my peace. Somewhere in the middle of that meal, I realized something big. I hadn't just escaped a house. I'd escaped a pattern. A lifetime of being expected to give everything while getting nothing in return. They thought that feeding me would be enough to pull me back in. But they didn't understand. I wasn't that kid anymore. I wasn't the quiet backup plan. I was the one who made it out. On my own. And if I was going to give anyone anything, time, energy, money, love, it would be people who didn't need me to fail to feel strong. It's funny how quiet people get, until they realize you're doing better than they expected. When I left that house, I was the overreactor. The ungrateful one. The kid who couldn't handle family life. But now I had a remote dev career, consistent freelance income, and a personal finance platform that was gaining real traction. People were subscribing, donating, and leaving comments about how my work had helped them finally understand their budget. And word got around. Not through me. I wasn't posting about my life on Facebook or trying to show off. But people talk. A friend of a friend mentioned my site. Someone from high school shared one of my blog posts. I wasn't chasing recognition. But it found me anyway. And once it did, the calls started again. This time? Different tone. My dad called, voice chipper like we were old pals. Heard you're doing well for yourself, kid. Maybe we were a little hard on you, huh? I didn't respond. My mom left a voicemail later that week. Maybe we could get together? Just talk? Your father's really proud of you. That was new. They'd never said that before, not when I graduated high school, not when I landed my first job, and not when I got a scholarship. Suddenly, I was worth talking to because other people had noticed I existed. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted access. To the lifestyle. To the success. To the stability they'd ignored when it looked like silence and spreadsheets instead of sports trophies and loud charisma like Chase had. And speaking of Chase, he was struggling. Big time. His next big project had flopped. Again. His wife had started working overnight shifts just to keep them afloat. They were still living at my parents' house, and apparently, tensions were high. One day, I got a message request on Instagram from Chase's wife. We'd never even spoken directly before. Hey, I know things were rough with the family, but you've got your life together now. Maybe you could help out a little? We're all trying our best. I sat there staring at it. Not angry. Not smug. Just done. Because I realized something. They weren't proud of me, they were desperate. It had never been about love. Never about support. Only what I could do for them. And the moment I stopped giving, the moment I prioritized my survival, I became the villain in a story they never let me write. But now, I was the one holding the pen. So I wrote a new chapter. I didn't reply to the message. I didn't send money. I didn't reach out with no hard feelings. Because there were hard feelings. I was allowed to remember what it felt like to sit alone in my room, working 3 jobs while my brother played video games in the living room and called me uptight. I was allowed to remember what it felt like to be told I should be grateful for a roof I was paying to live under, while Chase paid nothing. And I was allowed to enjoy the life I had now, free of guilt. One afternoon, I was setting up a Zoom call for a podcast interview. The host wanted to talk about how I built my finance platform from scratch, when I saw an email from my mom. Subject: just wanted to say we're proud of you. No ask. No guilt. Just a sentence. It should have felt good. But it felt empty. Because now they were proud, but only after they saw everyone else was. I closed the tab. Walked into my kitchen. Made dinner in silence. And realized, once again, how powerful it is to live a life they don't get to be a part of anymore. The most powerful thing I ever did. Not respond. No long speech. No tearful confrontation. No dramatic phone call with music swelling in the background. Just silence. Because when someone has taken from you over and over, your space, your peace, your value, they don't deserve one more word. And that's what I gave them. Nothing. After the "we're proud of you" email from my mom, I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her. Not because I needed her to feel ignored. But because she'd already said so much, through her actions, for years. Silence wasn't revenge. It was release. A few weeks passed. I kept living. My startup grew. I was invited to speak on a panel about financial literacy for first-gen college students. I built a free tool that was shared by a nonprofit. I got messages from people saying I'd helped them finally understand their money. None of that came from my family. None of it was funded by love or lifted by support. It was built in the dark. With my own 2 hands. On quiet nights when no one checked in. When no one believed in me. When I was just a background character in my own home. Now, I was the author. But just because I moved on doesn't mean they did. The messages started creeping back in, this time more desperate. We're about to lose the house. Your dad lost hours at work. Chase and the kids don't have anywhere else to go. That one hit different. Because once upon a time, I would have jumped to help. Would have transferred money. Sacrificed sleep. Cut corners. That's who I used to be, the fixer. But this time? I said nothing. Because I remembered the nights I sat alone in my car, too tired to go inside, knowing I'd be greeted by yelling, mess, and more guilt. I remembered how many meals I skipped so I could make rent on time while they lived off my contributions. I remembered the moment I left, and no one stopped me. Now, they wanted to be part of the story again. But they'd already burned that chapter. And the hardest part? I didn't feel cruel. I felt calm. Choosing peace over performance wasn't easy. I still had moments when I questioned it, when I wondered if I was being cold, selfish, or too proud. But then I'd look around my apartment, at the framed photos of friends who'd earned their place in my life, at the sticky notes on my wall filled with goals I'd set and smashed, and I knew. I didn't owe them my success. They didn't help build this. They only noticed it once it became impossible to ignore. I didn't announce that I was cutting them off. I just stopped answering the door they only knocked on when they needed something. And slowly, the messages stopped. Not all at once. Not cleanly. But the waves slowed. The pleas softened. Until the silence became mutual. And in that silence, I found something I never had in that house. Peace. No expectations. No guilt. No emotional debt I had to keep repaying to feel worthy. Just my life. Fully mine. People always talk about cutting off a toxic family like it's some massive, dramatic scene. Yelling. Accusations. Doors slamming. Final words that echo. But that's not what happened with me. There was no explosion. No fire. No shattered bridge behind me. Just distance. And when I looked back at where I came from, I realized I'd simply outgrown the road. I didn't hate them. I wasn't holding on to rage. I wasn't waking up thinking about revenge or waiting for karma to do what they never dared to. I just didn't need them anymore. And once I stopped needing them, I saw the truth. They weren't family. They were a system. A setup designed to benefit one person, Chase, while everyone else carried the load or got out of the way. And when I stopped carrying? When did I step out of the way? That system crumbled. Because I had been the glue. The filler. The one who paid quietly, cleaned quietly, held everything together quietly, until I finally decided that quiet wasn't the same as peace. And peace? That's all I ever wanted. Now, years later, I live a life I couldn't have imagined in that old house. I have clients who respect my work. A team I trust. A partner who listens. Friends who show up without needing a reminder. I eat dinner without guilt. I rest without permission. I laugh without having to explain why. There's still a photo of me and Chase as kids in one of my old notebooks. I keep it not because I miss him but because it reminds me of who I used to be. That kid didn't have a voice. He thought love was something you earned by being useful. I don't believe that anymore. Love is a choice. A practice. A two-way street. And when you realize someone only ever called it family when it served them, that's when you stop showing up for free. I still get the occasional email from relatives. Birthdays. Holidays. Sometimes a "hope you're doing well" from someone who heard I was doing big things. I don't respond. Not because I'm cold, but because they were silent when I needed them most. And now I've learned to treat people how they treated me, not with cruelty, but with boundaries. I didn't walk away from my family to hurt them. I walked away to find myself. And when I found him, I didn't need to go back. Because I became someone that scared them, not out of malice, but out of proof. Proof that I never needed their approval to become whole. Proof that I never needed their permission to matter. Proof that walking alone isn't lonely when you finally love the person you're walking with. I didn't burn the bridge. I just kept walking. Until I couldn't even see it anymore. And now? I don't need a bridge at all. I built a home.